Heatwave by David Langford. Sing of human unsuccess in a rapture of distress. Auden. Cryptanalysis 1. Secret. From Ferris, Undersecretary, Intelligence. To Stone, Head, Cryptanalysis. Dear Mr. Stone, the Head of Intelligence presents his compliments and wishes to call your attention to the enclosed communication recently received from the Lunar Observatory under somewhat suspicious circumstances. There has been no detectable response to further attempts at contact. Please return your comments in triplicate as soon as is convenient. Yours sincerely, Squiggle, PP JT Ferris, Undersecretary. Sweating in the intolerable heat of his office, Stone gave the letter a sulphurous glare. Just what was all this about? Intelligence passing the buck again? Angrily, he twisted the air conditioner knob. It was already fully on. Hell! For the first time, Stone glanced at the scrap of rice paper. Memorize and eat? Attached to the offending letter. It said simply, "The sun is going nova." Interim 1. The head of intelligence sipped iced tea and contacted the cretin computerplex from a distant teletype. He began to type. Does complete security exist in cryptanalysis department? Yes. How do you know? Assume complete security non-existent. Completeness implies total degree of existence. Ergo, security has incompatible qualities, completeness plus non-existence. Paradox. Ergo, complete security exists. Thank you and goodbye. My pleasure. Goodbye. The computer signed off affably. Baffled, but reassured, he left the terminal. Deeps 1. 20 miles beneath the Earth's surface, down the deepest hole ever made by man, Charles Trent sweated and stared dully at the seismographs. He wasn't needed in that cave of machines. Every last gadget was automatic, except the emergency shutdown switch. Rather than risk the expensive equipment to the smallest degree, the powers above, 20 long miles above, had decreed that a watchman always be present. 2 weeks to go. His only pastimes were reading and writing, mainly writing, for he hoped to sell his underground journal to some overground newspaper. He was working on it now. Above, there is the abstract pattern of society, Maya, the woven mesh of trivial human interaction. Below, there pulses the naked reality. Good Sunday supplement stuff, this. Chthon, the aching weight of a million tons of rock. Sounds good, must check the figures. Chthon, grinding darkness shot with flame. God, it was hot all right, and those 20-watt fluoros weren't doing his eyes any good. Here and only here, far from the distancing turmoil of the ephemeral surface, Dr. Johnson lives. Why can't I stay madding crowd and have done with it? Man can truly come to terms with his planet, be at one with its dark internal forces. Deep calleth unto deep. But sweet as the rind was, the core is, wrote Swinburne once, not knowing the core was sweeter yet than ever he guessed. For here, at the still point of the turning world, drivel, Charles, me boy, and you know it. Cross that last bit out. Not even the Sunday papers will swallow that still point when I'm nearly 4,000 miles from the centre, which is a damn sight hotter than this stinking hole. Let's try the radio for a change. After a while, he smiled. Having a heat wave, were they? It had better be good and chilly for his ascent from hell in 2 weeks. Cryptanalysis 2. The machinery of cryptanalysis was in high gear. Their cretin computer was hard at work on the mysterious message. Stone waited for the results, nerves on edge. Cretin, the Cryptanalytic Relational Execution Terminal Interface Network. Or was it right that the acronym referred to the machine's functions of coordination, relocation, extrapolation, triangulation, incrementation, and notification? It was too hot to think. Or again, it might be BZZ. After 4 hours of symbol juggling, Cretin had cracked the message. The display screen glowed. "The sun is going nova," it proclaimed in flashing letters. The output continued smoothly. "Prelim. A is first letter of alphabet but last of message. Query implies analysis to start at end of message. Query reverse message. Reversal. Avon, Gneog, C, NUSEHT." Stone jerked. NUS? What were those students up to now? Logical rearrangement. Avon, GN, 10, G, sinus, EHT. Comments. Avon refers to river. EHT, electrical abbreviation signifying extra high tension. GN10G, most advanced Chinese computerplex, has code GN9Q, also known as blossoming flower of knowledge and fount of cool waters of inspiration. Theorize. GN10G, superior model of same family. Sinus EHT, in conjunction with above factors, suggests ref to Chong Wong Institute near Stratford. Ostensible purpose of this establishment is cure of hay fever by electrotherapy and acupuncture. Conclusion. Chong Wong Institute is front for computerplex, purpose unknown. Further comments, none. End program. Cryptan 4 decompiling. Machine cleared. "I'll be damned," said Stone. Observatory 1. "Lovely, oh lovely." Lyman beamed as he examined the negatives. "A beautiful bit of work, Morgan. 3 new spectral lines. Wonderful." In the stifling air of the Salisbury Plain Observatory, the celluloid film was already curling up. "We'll call them the Morgan lines, of course?" queried the anxious researcher. "After all, it was my discovery." "But I did half the work, remember?" Passion broke in. Lyman smiled again. "Just to confuse the issue, boys, do you know that Brackett and Pfunt are hard at work producing some explanation of why the solar spectrum is sprouting new lines? Now, if they succeed, what can we call them but the Brackett-Pfunt lines? You'd better talk to them and come to some agreement." Lyman's smile became even more seraphic. "With only 3 lines and 5 of us, I admit the naming situation is a little—" "5 of us!" Morgan shrieked. "You don't mean you two?" He turned and walked out, followed by Passion. It didn't do to go too far with the director. "Close the door after you," Lyman called out, as he wrote "The Lyman Effect" in neat capitals at the head of a sheet of foolscap. Interim 2. Dr. Apricot always hated this lecture theatre. In the morning, the sun struck harshly down through the high windows at the rear, blinding him so he lost his audience in the shadowy body of the room. A faint snoring could be heard. In this heat he couldn't blame them. Where was he now? Ah, yes. "We see that although it is often theorized that the flaring of a stellar body into the nova state takes place very rapidly indeed on the cosmic scale, it is difficult to estimate precisely the time required for the transition stage. In fact, when we enjoy unusually hot weather such as we are undergoing at this moment, why, for all we know, we should be making our peace with God and preparing for the end of all things as our sun explodes into incandescent gases. Ha ha ha." He was rewarded by 2 or 3 polite titters among the snores. Intense gratification. Some of them are awake. But so hot, so hot. He sipped his tepid water and droned on. His next pleasantry produced just one chuckle. Modified rapture. Half an hour later, when the concentration of sunlight through his water jug set some papers alight, There was no response at all from the gathered students. A pox on them, they're all asleep now. Apricot poured water over the flames and walked out. Behind him, 200 earnest seekers after knowledge slept on in happy unawareness. Cryptanalysis 3. Stone sat listlessly at his desk, doing the Times crossword puzzle. What was the country coming to, he wondered, when you had to wear sunglasses indoors? Half the letters in the paper had been complaints about the Met Office, who were held generally responsible for the heat. He looked longingly at the closed window. Last time he'd opened it, the air had been hotter outside than in. On the street, 10 stories down, people wandered about, fainting alternately into each other's arms. Hot and scrambled under Stratford, 4. What was that? Vague thoughts of eggs drifted in his mind, to be dispelled as Higgins ambled in. Notice something funny about that thing you got everyone working on, gasped Higgins, wiping his brow and wringing out the handkerchief into Stone's wastebasket. The head eyed him with disfavour. What? Well, if you take every third letter, starting with that first T, look what you get. He scribbled on the blotter. The sun is going nova. Tsiogv. And now, rearrange it. Underneath, he wrote S. Voigt. There. Feel like telling that to Sammy Voigt next door? Stone buzzed Voigt on the intercom. Odd that you should call me just then, said Voigt, coming in with a strange smile. Take a look at this. I've been playing with anagrams. The paper he held out there had just 3 lines of writing on it, starting with that hateful message. The sun is going nova. Letters of message. A, E, G, G, H, I, I, N, 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 O, O, S, S, T, U, V. Rearranges to Stone, Higgins, Ovanu. Ovanu! Cried Stone. The famed, the legendary double agent. Precisely, grated Voigt, covering them with a heavy automatic. He turned back his lapel to reveal the large day-glow orange badge of security. And now, I'd like you to answer a few questions, Mr. Stone. Interim 3. Prudence String was sitting at her typewriter. She sucked at a cigar and rattled off the conclusion of tomorrow's supercharged philosophy for the masses. Although your hot and sweaty feet are itching, blame it on the heat, and be not narky to your friends. 'Tis not their deeds that shape your ends. So call your neighbour not a sod. The bastard is the work of God. Dismiss your anger with a laugh, and cool it in an icy bath. Not quite the right tone, maybe, but what the hell. She slid the sheet out of the typewriter. The pray as you enter column was one hell of a job. Where was that gin? Observatory 2. Again, Morgan and Passion walked in together. Both looked somewhat battered, and there was blood on their knuckles. You have come to some agreement? Lyman asked blandly. Yes, said Morgan. Briefly, the faint line in the far ultraviolet is to be called the Lyman bracket front line, while the strong red and blue-green lines are to be called the Morgan and Passion lines respectively. He braced himself for Lyman's counterblast. The furnace heat of the room. How did the old devil keep so cool? Did nothing for his nerves. My dear boy, murmured the director, I have bad news. The term the Morgan lines already exists in quite another context. A series in the hydrogen spectrum, nothing to do with the sun's current anomalies. The same goes for Passion, Bracket, and even the front series, in memory of your respective namesakes. And so does the Lyman series, shouted Passion. I just remembered. Let me finish. I've already prepared my paper, The Lyman Effect, which accounts for the whole thing. Something to do with runaway fusion reactions wouldn't interest you, and have very generously acknowledged your assistance in a footnote. You can't say fairer than that. Now, don't be hasty, he added hastily. That paper's already in the post to the Royal Society. Morgan approached with glazed eyes. Kill, he suggested. Kill, Passion agreed. Lyman sprinted for the door, dodging them both. Kill! Cryptanalysis 4. Stone's intercom buzzed. Answer it, Voight ordered. Stone obeyed, panting slightly. Mr. Stone, Tug here. I think I've cracked that message at last. Absurdly simple, like all cryptograms once you know the answer. Tug, thought Stone. Albert Tug. Take every fourth letter in the message, starting with the initial T, and you got Tugger. Tug, A, like the telephone directory? How did you do it? He inquired wearily. I ran the computer again and tied in the moron banks. The matrix-oriented random operator nexus. You guessed it. Anyway, it worked, and I've got the printouts here. Bring 'em up. In a minute. I'm still doing me nut down here. Click. Off went the intercom. Nut. Stone remembered. Nodal uncertainty testing. They waited in silence. Voight as coldly hostile as he could be at 96 Fahrenheit. The tea girl came in and poured a cup all round. None of them drank it. Iced tea, please, wailed Higgins piteously. They ignored him. Enter Tug, stage left, perspiring freely. Why, Mr. Voight, what are you doing with that gun? Shut up. Start talking. Tug was only too pleased to explain. First, I got the idea that the message should be read backwards. In reverse, that is. The computer thought of that, observed Stone dispassionately. He stared at a chocolate bar on the desk, which was flowing out of its wrapper and across some top-secret files. Ah, but I verified it. See, you take the first letter of each word and get TSIGN, which rearranges to sting. Like they say, the sting's in the tail, so I started from the tail end of the message. A faint, dull, thudding noise proved to be Higgins beating his head against the wall. But the important thing was, no letter B. What? Yes, I did a complete analysis. The probabilities were 97% that, if a layman were involved, he'd say, the sun is blowing up. And a scientist would say, 94.5 probability, the sun is becoming unstable. Both containing a B, you see. Voight's eyes were glassy. Stone muttered something about Ellery Queen. Now, what is special about B? The answer lies in topology. B is the only letter which comprises two closed loops when written as a capital. With this broad hint in mind, Cretin analysed the reverse message by assigning as 1 to letters containing one closed loop, such as A, and 0 to those with none, like S or E. This produces a binary number. He wrote as follows. AVONGNIOGSINUSEHT. The A's and O's are 1, the other letters 0. So we get the binary number 101 00001 0000000. That is 2 to the power of 16 plus 2 to the power of 14 plus 2 to the power of 9, giving 72,342 in decimal, which factorises to 2 to the power of 9 times 7 times 23. Now do you see? No! Chorused the other three. The room shrieked as another ambulance of heat-stroke cases went by. All right. Look, the prime numbers run 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 29, and so on. 1 doesn't count, making 2 the first prime, 7 the fourth, and 23 the ninth. Thus, The message boils down to the first prime to the ninth power times the fourth prime times the ninth, leaving us with the 4-digit message 1949. And, as it happens, his voice was heavy with meaning, the only person in this building born in 1949 is Clara the Tea-Girl. Suppressing an oath, Voight picked up his untouched cup, sniffed. As I thought! Cyanide! He charged out of the room. Shots rang out in the corridor. Stone and Higgins shook hands. Little does he know, said Higgins, rubbing the heat rash on his neck, that you poisoned his tea. He does know, Stone replied with an inscrutable smile. But he's on our side. Clara was the only agent of intelligence left in the building. This was our master plan to eliminate her. Not so fast, Stone. They turned. Tug, by the window, was aiming a light machine gun at them, and even gaped and screwed up their eyes against the intense light from behind him. He peeled off, with obvious relief, the lifelike rubber mask he wore. Ovanu! They cried with one voice. An earthquake shook the building. Interim 4. French power bonanza. Solar plants highest output ever. My son in who I am well pleased. Tar melts on motorways. Drivers told stay off major roads. Motorists of the world unite. You have nothing to choose but the lanes. His rivals in the placard line might beat him when it came to novelty, Jones mused, but he won all along the line on simple dignity, even in this ghastly heat. Repent, for the end of the world is at hand. Observatory 3. Slowly, painfully, Lyman recovered consciousness. He was lying on soft grass, and it was night. Even now, the air was hot and humid. He felt the stinging agony of second-degree sunburn. The aurora borealis danced on the horizon, and the moon shone down brightly, brightly. Now he remembered, being chased by the heat-crazed Morgan and Passion up onto the observatory dome. There, he had thought, he could hold them off forever. He had reckoned without their devilish cunning. They set the telescope for fast satellite tracking, causing the dome to rotate and throw him off. They must have left him for dead and rushed to break into the nearby mailbox. He smiled his old smile. Little did they know he had sent the precious letter by messenger to go by registered post from the nearest office. He was still too weak to stand. Was his leg broken? But happily he lay there as the moon shone brightly, far too brightly. Deeps 2. The monster lift was ascending the last mile, grinding and swaying. Trent panted in the hot, oppressive air. He was furious. He'd stayed a day late and no relief had turned up. Blast them all! Who do they think they are, leaving me down a bloody stifling hole and going away? Power's off too. Dim lights in the lift cage means emergency batteries up there. Good thing the lifts work from both ends. He picked up his manuscript. My unique experience in the depths. Oh, for something really unique. And added some dirty comments concerning the International Seismic Research Foundation, inefficiency thereof. Foundation for Assorted Researches into Tectonics, he thought. ISRF ought to change their name. Radio link broken down, no messages for a week, instruments playing up. 9.3 Richter readings, really. He was sick of it all. Still hot. It was silly, of course, but he could swear it was getting hotter as he neared the surface. Hotter, hotter, hotter.